Because Qasem Soleimani was killed on Iraqi soil, Iraq is in a tough spot. It's both allied to the U.S. as well as neighboring Iran, the two Shia-dominant nations. How will Iraq walk this diplomatic line?
It obviously has created a situation that is quite complicated. Right now, as you see, the largely Shia vote in Parliament, although you do certainly have Sunnis on board, but it is driven by Shia legislators. They had to do something. They had to say something. It's unfortunate in terms of the well-being of the country moving forward, because the United States' presence in there, albeit it's real, is not so significant. It's about 5,000 troops on the ground. But they were engaged in fighting ISIS, which is no laughing matter. And ISIS had wreaked havoc within Iraq, and it was through the coalition and joint efforts that they were able to be contained and pushed back and routed out of cities like Mosul and so forth. So though it's understandable that there would be some sort of knee-jerk reaction, something to show strength and sovereignty in Iraq, Iraq itself needs to figure out what it's doing. Now, the vote in the legislature, in the parliament, is the parliament. Ultimately, it comes down to the Iraqi government to decide what it wants to do about the American presence on the ground. And so far, it has not requested that the United States withdraw its troops.
And how tenuous would you say the situation is in Iraq right now? The U.S. President has advised all Americans to leave the country and has also deployed an extra 3,000 troops there.
Yes, I mean, obviously, given the high stakes of what's going on, the posture would have to be protecting American lives, ensuring that American lives are not endangered, and that, unfortunately, is where things are going to have to be for the foreseeable future. Ultimately, one can hope that there'll be some settling in of what has transpired, some sort of realignment and understanding that, yes, nerves are very tense right now, but ultimately the region has to be very careful about steps taken. And when I say the region, it's not just Iraq and Iran. It's the countries involved in Syria. It's, as your reporter just said a short time ago, what is Iran going to do? Are they going to try to seek revenge by targeting Israeli cities, even though the Israelis were not the ones who took out Soleimani? But that is sort of a repeat of what Saddam Hussein did in the Gulf War, attacking Israel, trying to find some sort of unified appeal on the streets, as it were, for some sort of cause, because Israel is often in the crosshairs of the Arab world, and certainly the current regime in Tehran is an archenemy of Israel.
Exactly, so the whole region being drawn into this conflict. I want to talk about the killing of Qasem Soleimani itself. Why now? What was behind President Trump's decision, would you say?
Look, I wasn't in the deliberations themselves, but it's understandable. Soleimani was a man who literally had American blood on his hands. So, this is no angel. This is a man who has actively engaged in terrorist activities and ensuring that civilians were killed. It's not just targeting American GIs. This is a man who orchestrated a lot of the efforts of arming Hezbollah, of ensuring that the attacks would have maximum casualties, and this is civilian casualties. This is a man who's been engaged in a lot of activity in Afghanistan, and certainly in Syria, it's been a bloodbath. So the fact that this man is no longer in the world, as it were, certainly will save lives immediately who have been affected, the types of lives, and a lot of them civilian casualties, because of his not being in the picture. Now, others will step in, of course, and resume this, including the Ghassan, who's now going to take over, who also has quite a curious journey in terms of pushing along the purely Shia Iran agenda, the Islamic Republic of Iran agenda. So Soleimani's gone, but obviously you have the Quds Force, and the same agenda is there, and I guess is going to be doubling down in their efforts.
Right. So Very quickly, Jonathan, relations between Washington and Tehran now icy cold. What's next, especially with the nuclear question?
Well, the nuclear question, it's clear the Iranians have taken the decision to withdraw from the accord altogether. The accord itself was such a faulty thing anyhow. It had problems. Though the Iranians were seen to be complying, the IAEA constantly had problems of access. They certainly, in the accord itself, didn't have access to military sites within Iran, so no one really knew that the Iranians were not pursuing the weaponry dimension of their nuclear program, something that they were found to be doing before the accord, and something that certainly some Western nation intelligence believed they continued to be doing at these military sites that the IAEA never had access to. So the deal itself never really put out of question that the Iranians were not seeking or were seeking nuclear weapons. So we could discover some pretty interesting realities in terms of the nuclear program in Iran in the coming days, things that might frighten the Western world certainly, and even other nations that signed on to the deal, like China and Russia, who have, of course, supported the deal. But Iran's quick reaction and decision, the regime's decision to quickly withdraw, says a lot. It's actually, in many ways, an affront to the Chinese and Russians and Europeans who are trying to keep the deal going. This isn't Europe and Russia and China's situation necessarily now. This is strictly an American standoff with Iran. So why is Iran deciding to rip up the deal with the other countries who signed up for the deal? Right. It says a lot, and we have to watch how things unfold now.
Jonathan Wachtel, thank you so much for your insight. Good talking with you.